Hello, welcome back to my book channel. This is going to be kind of a loud video with the ambiance. The air conditioning has to be on because it is a hot February day. So if you've watched any of my videos, you've probably heard the name Steph Bohrer come up. I am just generally obsessed with her YouTube content. She came up with a book tag, and so I'm going to be answering the questions, recommending books, and it should be a good time. I recommend you go watch Steph's video, and if you want to do your own video, you should. So I'm gonna get right into it, starting with the first question. What do you tell people is your favorite book? And I went with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is one of my favorite books. I have a ton of favorite books, but this is definitely one. I feel like this is a good answer for just like a stranger on the street, because I feel like a lot of people have read this book, so it'll give them a taste of what I like. And this book has a little bit of everything in it. So, you know, it's got fantasy, it's got romance, it's kind of historical. Yeah, I think it's a good pick for favorite book, and it is one of my favorites. If for some reason you haven't read this or you haven't heard about it, it's about this girl named Addie LaRue. She makes a deal with this demon pretty much, and she lives forever, but no one ever remembers her. Anytime she walks out of a room, walks back in, they don't remember her. Until one day, after she's been alive many years, somebody finally remembers her, and it's so good. Okay, the next question in the tag is, what is your guilty pleasure book? I have two. So Still Beating is one of my favorite books, and I've talked about it on here before. It is so dark. It is a guilty pleasure because I'm like, I don't know how I like this book so much when it is so just like dark. It gets very hopeful, and it is a love story underneath everything, but it's a lot. This girl gets kidnapped alongside her sister's fiance, and after they finally make it out, they're completely changed people, and they're like the only ones who like, they have this connection, and they feel like they're the only ones who like can really understand each other because they went through this huge trauma together. Very sad, but good. And my other guilty pleasure is The Lifestyle. This book is about swingers, and that's really all I have to say on why it's my guilty pleasure. I hate cheating, especially in a book, but it's just done so well almost. I don't know. This book's good though. Okay, the next question is, what is a book that everyone loved but you didn't? And for me, it's The Cheat Sheet. I liked this book, and I can't tell you why I don't love it. I just don't. I am all for a surface level, just like nice, bubbly, comforting read, but I felt like this one was lacking something. Like it didn't give me all that it needed to. But it was still like, it was a cute book. It was a good little love story. I don't know, it just didn't connect with me, but people love this book. So I don't know, I'm the problem. It's a Friends to Lovers, obviously about a football player and a ballerina. It's like, I can't even really tell you what it was about. It's just about them being friends, realizing they want to be more than friends, thinking the other doesn't feel the same way, and then they end up together. I don't know. Next question is, what book did you read the fastest? Now, this book is only 250 pages, but I read in 5 years so fast. I read it in one sitting. It's like one of the only books I've ever read in one sitting. It was my first Rebecca Searle. It's what got me hooked on her. It's kind of a magical realism. This girl gets a sneak peek of her life like 5 years in the future, and she is not with the man that she is currently, I think they're either seriously dating or they're engaged, but she is not with him in her little sneak peek. And then she runs into the guy that she saw in the sneak peek in real life, but it's extremely complicated, but it's everything. I devoured it. Next question is, what is a book that deserves more hype? And this book did come out in 2013, but I would like to see it come back around. It's Why We Broke Up, and it's like a bittersweet YA romance. It's the girl writing and telling her boyfriend why they broke up, and she leaves like all the things that she gathered throughout the relationship, like from dates or things he's given her, and she's talking about the moments throughout the relationship, the little things that led to the big breakup. But what I love so much are the illustrations. There's just pictures of like everything that's in the box. And the style of them is just so cute and cozy, even though it's about like a sad topic, but it's also kind of like hopeful and inspiring. But I just love it. It was just such a comforting read. Next question is, what is a book that has been turned into a movie or TV show that you love? I was gonna go obvious and go The Hunger Games, but I decided instead All the Bright Places. I was obsessed with this book. I need to reread it because I haven't read it since high school. But I loved this book, and the movie came out with Elle Fanning and Justice Smith, and I was a little disappointed. The movie was really good, and I think it kind of captured the basic essence of the book. And obviously, when it gets turned from a book to a movie, there's gonna be things that are left out, but I feel like they left like some important elements out that really help you to understand like the meat of the story. I don't know, I just feel like they could have done more, but the movie was still good. It was still very sad like the book, but I absolutely was obsessed with that book, and now I want to read it again and see if it still lives up to the hype. If you don't know what All the Bright Places is about, it's these two teenagers. They meet up on the rooftop of their school, and one of them is like this super popular girl, but then she's been very depressed since her sister passed away, and one of them is this loner kid who's like the weird kid. They meet and they kind of form this unlikely friendship, and then they have to do a school project together, and they start to understand that they just kind of get each other. But it's really, really sad. Next question is, what is the book that you have reread the most? I am not a rereader really, in the sense of like going back and reading the whole book again start to finish, but I will go to books and I will flip to certain places, or I'll like skim through and stop at my favorite places and read those again. And the one I probably do that to the most is You Deserve Each Other. I love this book. I think I've talked about it in probably every book video I've done, but it's just so adorable. It's so funny and quirky, but it also gets so deep about like relationships and marriage and like your emotional intelligence in the relationship and like communication in the relationship. It's so, so good. It's a second chance romance between this engaged couple, and they're both trying to get the other one to break it off before the wedding because they're both just like not feeling it anymore. So it's just like the journey and the mishaps of them trying to get the other one to break up with them. It has some really sweet moments, and I go back and read those often because I love them. Next question is, what is a book you love in a genre you don't normally read? And I am going with Rock, Paper, Scissors. This is a thriller, and I've only read a few thrillers, maybe like 5 or 6. I like a thriller every now and then, but I am just more so a contemporary fiction, romance, YA kind of girl. But this is so fast-paced, so twisty. This has been getting a lot of hype lately, and I think it deserves it because it is a good book to read if you are in a reading slump and you're trying to like get something to get you back in the groove. This will have you turn in the pages. This couple wins this retreat out in the middle of nowhere to stay in this, I'm pretty sure it's like a repurposed church into like a little home, a little Airbnb. But every other chapter is like when you get certain things for an anniversary, like, oh, it's your cotton anniversary, oh, it's your platinum anniversary. It's a letter from his wife on every anniversary, and things just get crazy. It's a wild one for sure, but it's fun and I liked it. Next is, what is a book that deserves the hype that it has? And I'm going with Icebreaker. You've probably seen this everywhere and heard people sing praises about it. I really liked Icebreaker. I first off am a sucker for any kind of hockey romance, any kind of figure skating romance, and she's a figure skater, he's a hockey player, so I'm automatically in. And then the couple in this book are just so sweet. They are so kind to each other. They are so caring and thoughtful. And what you've probably heard a lot is they are such good communicators. They just know how to talk to each other. They don't let things get in the way. They immediately talk it out. They're like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. What are we gonna do about it? It's very light, fluffy, cute, sweet. So I think it deserves the hype it has. Next is, what book do you recommend the most? And I think as far as this channel goes, I probably talk about The Dinner List. way too much. If for some reason you've never heard me talk about it, this girl goes to her birthday dinner and her list of like, oh, if you could have dinner with 5 people, dead or alive, who would it be? Her list is at the table, and they go through like their memories with her, and she like solves trauma with some of the people there. It's very magical realism, as most Rebecca Searle books are, but it is devastating, but so good. I just never hear anybody talk about this, so I think that's why I talk about it so much. It's probably the one I recommend the most on this channel, or talk about the most on this channel at least. Next, this is one of my favorite questions because I get to talk about 2 of my favorite series. What are the books with your favorite characters? First, I'm going to talk about the Addicted series. I am not done with the series. I'm about to read Thrive. I am trying to savor it because I love this series so much. It's like the Addicted series and the Calloway Sisters series, but they all tie together. The first Addicted book starts out about Lily and Lo, and we meet like Lily's sisters, we meet some friends along the way, and it just unravels into this big, I know some people hate it when you call it found family because the girls are sisters, but they are a little found family among like the friends and the boyfriends and everything. And the characters, I like miss them when I think about them. I want to call them up and like check on them and see how they're doing. All the characters in this series I love. The angle's different because my camera's falling more and more by the second, but the Crave series books. The 6th book, I think, in the series is coming out pretty soon. This is the 4th, but it's the only one I have physically because they are some big boys. So I read them on my Kindle. They're about this girl. She goes to this boarding school where her uncle is the headmaster and her cousin goes there, and she starts to realize that these people are weird. Well, turns out they're all vampires, werewolves, witches, and dragons. So she gets swept up in the supernatural world. All these crazy things happen. These are like the ideas and descriptions in this. I've never read the Harry Potter books, but the way that people talk about the Harry Potter books, it's rival to that. It's like, how did you come up with this? This is so complex and so interesting. Yeah, there's a big cast of characters and they're all a hoot. I love them a lot. Next is a book you wish you could live in, and I have like a real world answer and a fantasy answer. So my real world answer is One Italian Summer. This takes place on the Amalfi Coast. This girl is supposed to go on a trip with her mother, but then her mother passes away and she still goes on the trip, and then she sees a version of her mother when she was younger and on this trip. And just the way that Rebecca Searle describes the Amalfi Coast and like the hotel, the restaurants, the sunsets, the ocean, it makes me want to eat the descriptions. Everything is just described so deliciously, and it makes me want to be sitting in a beach chair on the Amalfi Coast. And then my more fantasy answer is A Court of Frost and Starlight. I won't say too much since this is like, it's like a novella within the A Court series, but it's like 4 books in, so I won't say too much. But the little town that it takes place in, and it's like their version of Christmas time, and it is just so sweet. It just feels warm and cozy and comfortable, and I want to live in that little town anyway, but especially during this like Christmas time, I would love it. Next is a book you thought you would hate but you actually love. I don't read books that I think I'll hate. I don't know why people go into something and they're like, this doesn't sound good, but I'm gonna read it anyway. I guess to expand your horizons. But if I don't think something sounds good, I'm not gonna read it. That being said, the book I picked for this was one that my sister recommended. I didn't think I was gonna hate it because we have pretty similar tastes, but not like exact tastes. And this was like a 500+ page book, and she loved it. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna love it as much, but it sounds good. I'm gonna give it a shot. And I like it a lot. It's Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. The sequel to that book came out today, and I think I'll read it. It's not like super high on my TBR, but I'll probably give it a read at some point. I think it's free on Kindle Unlimited. Now, things we never got over. The first one is about this girl who she runs away from her wedding and she goes to this town where her twin sister is from, and turns out her twin sister is like hated in this town. She is just like not a good person, which the sister knew this already, but she meets this guy who absolutely hates her sister, and he kind of like watches out for her niece. And turns out her sister left and abandoned her niece and left the girl to take care of her. So it's all about like that transition and her moving to this town and her like relationship with the guy. It's a nice little small town romance, grumpy sunshine, enemies to lovers, very tropey, very cute. Next is, what is a book that made you cry? How long do you have? I am a big crier. Firm believer in crying, love crying. And I read a lot of sad books just because I like that. That's my vibe. I've cried at a lot of books, but this one in particular was so heartbreaking. I read this recently and it is easily one of my favorite books. It's such a hard read. It is like sickening, but it's also so satisfying the way that she grows throughout this. The main girl gets sexually assaulted by her brother's best friend, who everybody like knows, loves, trusts. And it's about her 4 years in high school, her dealing with that and how it affects everything else in her life. And it definitely made me cry. Last but not least, on a happier note, what is a book you want to read again for the first time? I think this is the perfect book for that because I want to read it again, like anyway, but it has this twist to it that is so unexpected the first time you read it and so magical. It's Again But Better. Here's the dust jacket. I don't like dust jackets. I get them, like I understand, and this one's cute, but I hate them. So this is about a girl that goes on a trip to Europe through this program in her college, and her family has no idea she's doing it. She just goes and she's like, I want to do this for me. And she goes to like, I think London and Paris, I believe. And she meets all these new friends and this love interest. And it's just kind of her journey of, it's just her journey of finding herself and learning what she wants to do with her life. But then, I won't give anything away, but the second half, or like the second portion of this book, is so wild. Like, you would not see it coming, and not in a bad way. Like, it totally makes sense. You start to put all the pieces together and you're like, oh my gosh. But it hits so hard the first time that like I want to read this again, but I know it's just not, like, since I already know it's not going to be the same. But it was such an amazing feeling on the first read. And that is everything. That is all the questions in the tag. Thank you, Steph, for coming up with this. So fun, and I feel like I got to talk about some books. I talked about a lot of the books that I talk about a lot, but I feel like I got to bring in some new reads. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next book video. Bye!